Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Maintaining Stability of Palo Alto Networks Firewalls. Your speaker today is Ulrika de Fort Menares, who is the VP of Product and Strategy at Indeni. She started her career as a network engineer working for two of Canada's most respected organizations, the Canadian Railway and the Royal Bank of Canada. In both roles, she was responsible for the network to keep their business up and running. After 9 years in IT, Ulrika was converted to the dark side and joined Cisco, where she held various engineering and product management positions for Cisco's video collaboration software, WAN optimization, and network performance management solutions. Most recently, prior to joining Indeni, Ulrika led product strategy for Live Action, where she was responsible for defining the vision, strategy, and execution of their application-aware network performance monitoring product line. Today, as the VP of Product and Strategy at Indeni, she is focused on building a knowledge-based network automation platform for IT. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Ulrika, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alexa, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's been over 3 months since the shelter-in-place order. As we're getting ready to start reopen the economies, you may be wondering how the post-pandemic workplace will operate. We at Indeni believe that automation is going to be one of the new normal for many of you. Certainly, that's the case for many of our existing customers. If automation wasn't on your agenda, you should reconsider that. Why? Because you might have been asked to do more with less, or it's because the new remote operating environment means more work for you or more uncertainties. For whatever reasons, we can take a few things off your plate with our automation capabilities. In this webinar, we'll look at some interesting statistics as a result of coronavirus. We will talk a little bit about the best practices that Indeni has automated, how we can help you keep things up and running during this interesting time. Then we will do a live demo and wrap up with the Q&A. Many of our customers are telling us that they are expecting to continue operating remotely pretty much throughout the entire year, if not longer. Some companies have even decided to let employees work from home for good. So you might as well enjoy being at home. Looking back in March, it was when coronavirus was getting a lot of attention around the world. What you're looking at here is data between March 9th to 15th. The blue bars are cases of COVID-19 reported by these various countries. The orange line reflects the percentage increase in VPN usage for that same week. Notice Italy was hit very hard at that time. And look at the VPN usage. It went up by 112% as a result of everyone working from home. Looking at the data, there's almost a direct correlation between the number of COVID-19 cases and the percentage of VPN usage increase. A week later, a lot more reports, very similar as the world witnessed VPN skyrocket for the entire month of March. And whether we like it or not, working from home became the new normal. Unfortunately, as we see more coronavirus cases, we are also seeing a large increase in the number of threats and phishing emails from cybercriminals. Take a look at this interesting research by Checkpoint. The report was first published around in the middle of February, and then a few weeks ago, there was a new update. Look at that sharp increase of coronavirus-related cyber attacks, starting around mid-March till the end of April. According to Checkpoint, they have seen 192,000 coronavirus-related cyber attacks per week. That's a 30% increase when compared to the week before. No doubt, this is the time to ensure that your VPN service is patched and up to date, and it's generally a good idea to tighten up your security posture as hackers are targeting vulnerabilities in VPN. So how can Indeni help? Actually, when it comes to providing support for VPN, working from home, We are rather experienced. I remember it was January of last year when polar vortex hit the Chicago area. It was insanely cold weather. Outside temperature was at minus 13 degree. With wind chill, it was minus 51 degree. Everyone in the Chicago area was forced to work from home. One of our customers asked us to develop a couple of custom checks for them because they wanted to be able to proactively monitor the drastic spike of VPN connections. The customer was concerned that an average box would not be able to sustain more than 70,000 concurrent sessions. So they wanted to be able to see the number of sessions, and they wanted to be able to restrict the number of users at all times. So when coronavirus hit us back in March, it was a bit of a deja vu. This time around, we were a lot more prepared. We knew what we had to do to support our customers, except that I guess we hadn't realized that it was an order of magnitude worse than the event back in January. So overnight, VPN became the vital infrastructure for your entire workforce working remotely. Remember, you had to work extra hard to ensure that your security infrastructure was ready for the new remote operation conditions. We knew that it would be important to track the number of concurrent connections. Each device has a limit to the number of sessions it can support. Different devices are sized for different amounts of connections. In the worst case, reaching the maximum could actually result in an outage. So in March, we accelerated the development of this report, the one that you're looking at on the screen now, showing historically concurrent connections against the device limit. We knew you would want to run this report as part of your capacity planning, making sure that your infrastructure is ready for prime time. We knew you would want to run this report regularly to continuously track concurrent connections against the device limit. By the way, when the number of connections are approaching the device upper limit, we proactively alert you before bad things happen. What else do we track? We track the tunnel status. Many VPN tunnels are temporary. They go up and down regularly for, well, some must be up all the times. For example, your site-to-site VPNs. Knowing if a tunnel that should be up is down is critical for a quick response. We can differentiate between a permanent VPN tunnel versus a dynamic VPN tunnel and alert you accordingly. We even have the ability to automatically triage VPN tunnel issues. In fact, we're going to show that to you later on in the demo. We also track the health of these tunnels. Specifically, we look for things like authentication errors or decryption errors. These are both good indicators of whether a tunnel is working as intended. To ensure performance and availability of VPN services, we continuously fetch key metrics and evaluate the health of your device. For example, we ensure your next hop is accessible. We alert you if your BGP peer is down. Now, your firewall requires constant access to many services. For example, Panorama. Maybe your firewall needs a new policy or it needs to fetch a new configuration. Your firewall also needs connectivity to the LDAP server, maybe because it needs to map an IP address to a user in order to make a forwarding decision. Your firewall obviously constantly wants to send logs to its remote logging servers. For Wildfire to work correctly, your firewall needs to be connected to the Palo Alto Networks cloud. If the connection is lost, the filtering behavior may be impacted. Similarly, your firewall needs to be connected to the URL cloud so it can get new updates to block newly discovered phishing or malware URLs. These are just some examples. The point is connectivity to these issues is essential. When it comes to performance of the box, you probably want to have visibility to SSL decryption, as it tends to be a rather CPU-intensive feature. We track the number of SSL decryption sessions. We proactively alert you when the number of sessions is near the device capacity. We also track the memory usage specific to SSL decryption. Recently, we're seeing automation taking the front seat across the board. If you already are an Indeni customer, you know that we crowdsource our knowledge from industry experts around the world. These experts, they codify the best practices when it comes to running or troubleshooting your security infrastructure. One of the things that we are most proud of is our remediation steps, whether it's sending you pointers to the vendor's knowledge articles or providing you with the step-by-step commands so that you could do some meaningful troubleshooting. Last year, we introduced auto triage. So when we detect an issue, we automatically start an investigation on your behalf, things that you would normally do manually. Let me walk you through an example. We have an alert, logs are being discarded. You're probably saying to yourself now that, wait, that's a P1 event. Yes, this is a big deal. When Indeni detects this issue, we automatically kick off an investigation without human intervention, or you can choose to manually execute the playbook. It's entirely up to you. The first step of the investigation is to retrieve the logging rate from the device. We compare the rate to the device rate limit. If it was indeed the root cause, this would be an indication of some kind of a hardware limitation. Perhaps it's time to look into an upgrade. Meanwhile, we suggest workarounds as a stopgap. Things like you may want to disable logging for certain types of traffic, such as DNS and ping, or only log the container page and not subsequent pages because URL filtering can potentially generate a lot of log entries as an interim workaround. If it wasn't the logging rate, we proceed to the next step, and that is to look at session utilization. Is the box overloaded? If the utilization was above 70%, it's considered high. Again, we make recommendations to disable certain types of traffic. So if it wasn't session utilization, next, we check for connectivity issues. Can your firewall reach the remote logging server? Is your logging server even up and running? Essentially, we walk down this workflow step by step. Say the worst case happened. We got to the bottom of the workflow and we didn't conclude anything. Now it's time to open a trouble ticket with Palo Alto Networks. But wait, we have just run a whole slew of investigative steps, collected diagnostic information about the problem. Now, all you have to do is to attach our auto triage findings to your trouble ticket. This should save you a ton of time. Early on, you saw some interesting statistics. There has definitely been growing use of COVID-19 related themes by malicious actors. Chances are you're already taking proactive steps to protect your environment. Here are a few things that may be helpful to you when it comes to automating this process. We recently implemented the Center for Internet Security benchmarks for Palo Alto Networks. So if you're looking to harden your infrastructure, this could be a good place to start. In fact, in the upcoming release, you will see CIS as a new rule category. So you can easily run a report to see if your devices are compliant. From time to time, we monitor the Palo Alto Network security advisories and add vulnerability checks regularly. On top of that, we have compiled a list of security best practices from our own experts and customers. As of today, we have over 50 security-related risk-related checks and over 30 CIS-related checks. When it comes to best practices, we are a big fan of following vendor-recommended best practices as we believe that this is one of the ways to stay out of trouble. We've implemented a subset of the BPA checks. We've also compiled a list of best practices from our own customers and experts for you to take advantage of. The last topic I want to touch on before the demo is around ongoing maintenance. Tasks like checking for license expirations, end of support, they're easily forgotten tasks, right? My favorite one is SSL certificate expiration that can actually cause an outage, at least from the perspective of your remote users. So why not let us help by providing you well in advance notice? After all, this is probably not the best time to have your certificate expired and your remote users can't connect. For the demo, we have invited a special guest to take you through a live demo of the Indeni automation platform. Satir is one of our Indeni knowledge experts. He's the author of many of these automation scripts and playbooks that you're about to see. We're very fortunate to have Satir this morning, and he's been helping us in the last 2.5 years. So Satir, all yours.
Thank you, Alurka. Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to go over Knowledge Explorer and navigate you through some important screens and go over some common use cases that Alurka has already mentioned. First, how do we get to this Knowledge Explorer? What does it mean? So after you log into Indeni server, so this is your first dashboard that you log into. And then the next one right underneath it is the issues. So you are, if you're familiar with Indeni server, so you're already familiar with these screens. So this is where you see all the alerts coming on your dashboard. You can navigate through these alerts. And the one that's right next to it is the Knowledge Explorer. Now, what is Knowledge Explorer? So this is a module within Indeni that helps the users to interact with rules, learn about rules, and customize them as needed for your environment. So if you look at it, I'll just go back to issues and see and walk you through one of these. So how do these issues show up here? Not just by themselves. Right? So when an incident happens in a firewall, in a system, so the data is collected and then a rule is run against it, and which checks against, hey, is this an issue? Is this not an issue? And if this is an issue, that's how it kind of, you look into this as you want to troubleshoot them. For example, if you let me, so this is a demo system where we have all of our firewalls as well. I'll go and filter them out. All right. So let me pick one of these alerts that you would see. So you see over here that the DNS servers do not match across cluster members. So this is an alert. The alert here shows up because there's a rule that runs against these configurations. Say, hey, I see different DNS servers in the HA pair across the clusters. So let me go over to Knowledge Explorer now. So one thing to focus on here is the category. Ulrika mentioned a couple of categories during her presentation where she mentioned about security advisories, best practices. This is where you can see what they are, how many best practices how many categories we have in general. So you have health checks, high availability, security risk, best practices. You have about 6 of them here. So let's go to and pick one of these categories and see what they mean here. So I went in and filtered on Palo Alto Networks. So these are all some of these best practices and some of these security risks that we already talked about. I'll just pick one of them. So I'll go to overview. So it gives you the details of what exactly is this rule running against. So this talks about a security vulnerability that Palo Alto mentioned previously in one of their security advisories. And it gives you all the details as to what it is, the CVE number, and other details. So if we go and, okay, what is this rule now? How does Indeni look into this rule? So there's this the code snippet that we could look into, and we see we can go in and figure out where all these how this is done. Take let me go pick some a different one here. Ulrika also mentioned about the dynamic VPN tunnels, which is a very important thing at this moment. So again, this is one of the previous ones that I mentioned here. Then we can go and this is another one that you can see it as it falls under best practices. It also falls under health checks. Let me go into overview here. So Indeni tracks these error metrics for these VPN tunnels. It keeps track of them as they occur on these tunnels. All right. So how does Indeni pick this up? So there's a code that runs behind it. You have all these details. I'll also show you where to look for in a bit, but this is where you can see that the Indeni rules pick up these metrics, run rules against them, and then they display it as an issue and alert the users. So I'll go back to the issues. I want to run one more scenario so you can see how what Ulrika mentioned as auto triage, which is really powerful for network engineers. I want to pick something that that will be interesting. Okay, let's search for this. Okay, here we go. So if I go to overview here, so we detected that the BGP peer is down. So, and I can see that the details of when it went down and what the other peer was and when it was detected. So I can go into auto triage and I can see what it does here. So if you go down this path, so it is checking for the BGP peers. And if the peer is down, it is checking for the local IP of what it is, what the peer is. Then it is seeing if it can ping BGP peer from its local interface. If it is successful, then so it kind of goes into step-by-step of a workflow. So this is very, very handy for at times where the engineers are under pressure when something like this happened, as in a BGP peer going down and the internet could be down, or some services could be severely impacted. So I'll go back to the issues. And so I just wanted to run one more common use case that could be very helpful to customers. You can select your device. So these are lab devices, and these have some data. So you'll see some of these screen graphs come in as straight lines here. But in general, this is how you could go in and see, hey, so there's a increased usage of VPN connections. So what is the session limit? How many connections can the firewall handle? And are we close to the capacity? That's a very important thing for the network engineers. Ulrika, I think I have walked through all the some of these use cases, very important ones. I think if there are any questions, I can take them towards the end of this.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in. We're going to take questions at this time. Our first question is, how often are the end of life, end of support dates updated?
So generally what we do is every release, we first of all, we monitor the new releases from Palo Alto Networks, and we want to keep up with the new releases. When we do that, we look at the end of support dates, and that's when we do an update. Typically about 3 months. We like to be about no longer than, say 3 to 6 months after every major release from Palo Alto Networks.
Great. The next question we had is, can we chain the rules as a workflow?
Alex, I can take this question. So when I walked over the BGP use case, this is what exactly we did. So basically, we had a few rules that would go in and check for the if the device is alive, if the peer is alive, and if we can reach it. If there are a few rules that we looked into, and that is exactly what is auto triage, the workflow that we followed.
Great, thank you, Satya. The next question is, if I already have Panorama, should I consider Indeni?
I can take this as well. So Panorama is as we all know, it is very important to manage all these firewalls centrally. But it is also important to make sure that Panorama itself is also healthy, and its HA is healthy, and for it to function properly, to manage what the users need to do. There were instances where I looked at in some places where the HA had a problem, so there were some memory issues that, like any other system, Panorama can also have its own problems at times. So it is very important that Indeni can help in this situation. In fact, Indeni can also monitor Panorama for us in these situations.
Actually, I want to add that every single one of our customers also has Panorama, and every single one of them has added Panorama as a device that Indeni would monitor. Also, like customers also really like the auto triage functions. The fact that we do troubleshooting, instantly capturing, information. That's, I think, something that's new and very useful, especially during this time.
Great. As a next step, we encourage you to leverage these resources to gain more insight into how Indeni delivers out-of-the-box verification of best practices for Palo Alto Networks. As a reminder, these resources, along with our free trial of Indeni, will be shared with you after the webinar, along with the live recording. This concludes our webinar. Thank you again to our audience, as well as to Ulrika and Satya for presenting today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.